And
All right, I did just start recording, and when you speak, it should just spotlight you and the screen, so that should work well. And we'll take that off when we get back to larger group. I just want to make sure I have it for folks who might miss.
no problem. And so right now we're talking about the contextual analysis tool, and there is a user guide. This is really, this is something to be cognizant as you take it this year, because there's 2 user guides. And so you are taking the 2021-2022 tool, because NC, like I said, is a continuous learning organization, and they changed and adapted it last year, and then changed it again. And so make sure you are always using the 2021-22 version of that tool and the diagnostics and the user guides that go with it. So on in your portal, the user guide is under the readings, under the book, and it's the contextual analysis tool user guide 2021-2022. And I want you to, starting on page 2, you're going to read about the questions, and so I want you to follow along with me, and then I'm going to give you a second to review this. And so if you have any questions before I go, we can clear those so that you, in your time taking the tool, will be usable. So starting on 2, it's going to ask questions. And so there's closed item questions and open item questions. So for the closed item, it's going to ask whether or not you agree, disagree, or not sure. And so these questions are intended to be a little bit complex, because often our situations are complex. And so when you answer agree or disagree, it's going to follow up at the end with an open-ended response, where you're going to want to really put in details about why you feel that way. And so that you can use that information. So I encourage you to be thoughtful. You can look through, what I like about some of these updates, you can look through every single question on the survey before you take it, and then you can go back. So you do not. And then you can also take it in segments and save along the way. So we'll look at that in a second. But again, so you'll answer agree, disagree, or not sure. It's okay to put not sure, because you're going to need to find out, that's going to give you some information about what you need to find information about your context. And so then it's under 4, the questions are organized under 4 domains. So if you look on page 4 in the user guide, the domains are domain 1, sets direction and assesses progress towards a shared vision of success for all students. So those questions are really getting to the heart of that. You'll talk more in unit 2 about setting a vision and looking at strong visions and what that means for an organization. Domain 2 is builds relationships, develops people, and distributes leadership. You'll really talk about that in unit 7. But those are going to be some questions that start thinking about that aspect. Domain 3 is establishes structures and processes for teacher collaboration and learning. I would say, just for that collaboration and really focus on learning. So what are those systems? And you'll start looking at in unit 8 and unit 9. And then domain 4 focuses on consistency across classrooms and continues to align system components. So really thinking about consistency across different aspects of your organization, and if you see that. And so what it's going to help you do is, Sarah and Angela and Emily will never see your individual responses. What they will see as facilitators is a compilation of everybody's responses. So I'll just give you an example. My last cohort, the visions of this in the system had not been looked at for over 10 years. And so it was really interesting that 80% of the cohort really were struggling with answering some of the questions and saying that they agree with the statements around having a strong vision in their school for student learning. And so it gave me some insight as a facilitator of where we might want to spend some more time and leave some time for talking. But your answers are for your learning and for yourself. I'm going to go, remember that graphic where I said you're going to spend time thinking about your context? You're going to spend time, but between units 2 and units 3, you're going to ask other people to be thinkers with you. And that is the heart of action learning, right? And so the other people need to be thinking and offering you different perspectives on your context. So you will be sharing the tool with others. And why I say this is because after you share the tool with others, you will have access to another compilation report. You will not know who said what on the tool, but your responses as well as their responses will all be able to be on one report. So you can use that with other people, other stakeholders, to kind of make a decision, to think about. Finally, then we ask you to think about your problem of practice down after. So you don't need to decide on your problem until unit 8. So we used to say, all right, go. Now we say, all right, think about your context, go explore. What do you know? What do you not know? What do you need to learn more about? And then ask other people to be thought partners with you and ask them to think about the context and share information that you may or may not see in your organization. All right, so 3 o'clock. Now I'm gonna, before I show you where to find the tool, I just want to pause for a second and questions on action learning, how it fits into NISL programming.
Wendy, there was a question, and again, this is something that we can own as a department, and we've been pretty clear that we're making this transition from 2019 to 2021. So there was a question around the inventory that folks may have done in preparation for today, and that was an older version. So I think that can be a very useful tool, and it's something that people can go back to and revisit. I would say this new tool will be more helpful as we consider action learning and our roles. Is that correct?
That is correct, but I'd also say that in unit 2, you're going to have a chance to review your answers and really look for patterns. And if you have done the other tool, I would say use both of them to look for those patterns. So it's not time wasted. It's just that we now, like I said, we've made a shift in the organization where we used to ask you to answer some things before you ever came, then talk about it for patterns, and people often wanted to retake that tool. And then we'd say, okay, now find what's your problem? Like, what are you going to fix? And now we've asked people to really just slow down and give themselves some time to really think about their context. So both of those tools you could use in unit 2. Does that make sense?
I have a question. When it says like agree, disagree, not sure, if those are still the categories, some of the questions would be true in one facet or not system-wide or not. So that's when I would want to put not sure, because I couldn't fully agree. I could agree that yes, it's happening, but not everywhere. So is not sure the right answer for that, or is it you have to make a judgment?
So NC is going to encourage you to make a judgment. So if you're really not sure because you don't have evidence, but if it's not systemic, it's probably a disagree. And in your open response, you can put, you see it in some aspects and put the positive, and you don't see it in other aspects, which is why you had to disagree. And the open-ended responses might help you capture that. It's not a quiz in the sense, it's really no one there. You can't, you don't get 100 because it's a tool for you to understand your context so that your problem of practice, and you'll spend more time in unit 2. But Judy Cotting just didn't pick math because she liked math, right? Think about that. Judy Cotting picked math because in her situation, her students needed to go on and have college and career credit. She wanted them to succeed past high school, and math was a way that she really could support that learning for her students. So it wasn't, she just was passionate about teaching math. She herself wasn't even a math teacher, right? So think about other leaders and how their problems were selected. Other questions before we looking around? You guys are good. Usually I get a lot more questions on Lindsay, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
have a question. Well, a question is a question. So I'm gonna have to go through this and read and like digest. And is there a forum or a group email, or does the portal have a forum in which we could post a question and get feedback from others in this group?
So there's no forum on the portal, but I do suggest that you fully read the user guide before you take it. And then I think that will help you make decisions around where you're putting agree, disagree, or not sure. And I would also say that you could take it again. So if you decided, so one of the principals I'm working with in another cohort, I met her in August. She started her school. I met her at the end of August. She started her school. She met her school in the beginning of August. So she had a lot of not sure's about her context. And so she's taking it again a little bit later on. So to understand that, because your problem of practice doesn't have to be identified until your action learning plan isn't, or problem isn't identified until much later in the coursework. But for questions, I think maybe you could field those. Angela, Sarah, Emily, could they just, could you collect questions? And then what I usually do as a facilitator is then respond back the answer to the entire cohort, because generally if the question is confusing somebody, it might be confusing everybody. And so I just kind of, if it's a pertinent question, just share back the answer, because we don't have a forum. So that's what I've been doing in my last cohorts. I don't know if that will work for you guys.
Yeah, that should work. Although I would highly recommend that the platform think about putting in a forum, just adult learners and having
Frequently asked questions.
yes, yeah, just a way to connect.
Yep. And actually, and I will work with Angela and Sarah and Emily throughout the year, and then I'll come back and see you guys in January. We're offering different opportunities, networking opportunities for similar participants across. And so I can talk to them a little bit how that might happen in your cohort, because NISL is all about NCE is all about really thinking about what even happens after you finish Unit 12, and how do you keep that professional learning with a systematic lens for all students going. Those are really great questions. Any other questions that I can help with before I walk you through on how to take this and where to find it? Good. And if you have one, it's not last call. I can show you where, and if you're thinking of something, then you can ask that question. So we'll delve in. So in case people are leaving, I can show you where it is. I'm going to share my screen.
And while you get ready to share your screen, I'll just mention, folks, that once you complete the whole experience, there are opportunities that NISL or NISI have created that you can become a participant in, maybe not as intensive learning experience as this 12-month program, but become connected. If you're looking for a connected network of people who have participated in learning scenarios such as this, there will be opportunities for you to do that in various forms. I know Maine's always looking at that, although we're sort of waiting for COVID to move beyond us. But just know you just started the journey. Yeah.
So if you are looking at the portal writings, if you're in a unit, if you're there, you're going to go back to the house and it will bring you back here. Does that on the left-hand side, you'll go back to the house. And then these are the tabs, and you're going to go to the tool. You're going to go to the tools tab, and you're actually you're not going to use action learning, you're going to use diagnostics. And under diagnostics, I have many, but you scroll down and you're going to context analysis tool. And so you can see I've already completed 2 because Lindsay, as you said, people asked me questions that I wanted to kind of delve into. So I went back in and took it again as myself using my former district as my context. But you're going to hit new to start it and then get started. And then it shows you your progress, but this is really important. You can save along the way. So just make sure you're hitting save. I can tell you that if you are not getting a green, this will turn green when you're done with those questions on that page. Sounds crazy, but if you take it on an iPad or on a phone, sometimes you don't see the last question and you have to scroll up. So if you're getting that, if it's not turning green, when you take it, I'll just not follow my advice and I'll just not even read, right? And I hit next. You can see how that button turned green. If I didn't answer a question, we'll do it here. If you're on a different format and you hit next, you can see how that stayed yellow. That should be a key to you that you need to go back to the previous page and you probably need to either take it on a different device or scroll on your device. It happens on some tablets, just to give you a warning, a heads up and a warning about that. So I'm going to go to the next page so you can kind of just see. So again, it's asking you those closed questions to rate your level of agreement. And then these are all closed questions. The next question, it says, how does leadership build the capacity? I would encourage you to put in some thoughtful answers. Take time to put, you'll use these responses over again. So if you don't really have a good example right now, you might want to put not sure, and you might even put that I don't have good examples, and you need to find that. You can keep notes to yourself in that and hit save. So
Wendy, we have a few people who work at it like an organization or a board. And so it says for school leader, as if it's one building. Do you anticipate many of these questions can be transferable under those situations? Because they're looking at their context within their space.
So I would say definitely yes, because we often have district leaders who need to think about not just a school, or they need to think about across the district. And so I would say you need to answer or you should answer the questions with the lens in which you feel you can develop a team that would be able to think about a problem of practice that would encourage your, that would be able to move your organization forward in a positive way. And so if it's a school board, you're going to take it right now, but you're probably thinking of it from your school community. And if you're an organization, I think you can, it says school leader, but as an organizational leader, you can make that. And I would say, if you think about classrooms, the classroom questions, because I was thinking about Maine's diversity of participants and really excited about that, what opportunities those offer, but sometimes the language in some of these tools were made for school leaders, but they're, if you think about when they're asking for classrooms, they're asking about consistency in systems. So thinking about, you might, so I'll give you an example. As a leader, you might be saying one thing, but are you seeing evidence of that when you're not there? So is that happening in places that are in your organization when you are not there? What are those pieces of evidence? So that would be, so think about it in that lens, that is it systematic, or is it just happening through one voice in your organization? That's a great question, Angela.
Yeah.
Other questions? Because if not, you have one more thing I need you to do before I leave you. So as you are kind of preparing down this NISL journey, and I say it's a journey because it really is exciting. You do a lot of self-reflection. As Angela mentioned, she has her composition book. I still have my composition book from over 4 years ago, and maybe 5 years ago now. Yes. And I still look at it. I was looking at it last night, knowing I was coming here. Wishing kind of I was coming in person today. Not gonna lie, I love Maine. But my daughter said, she's at UVM, she said, I have much better weather than you guys do today. But I want you to think about, as you start this NISL journey, what kind of conversations are you going to start having about your learning journey with others? So let me put that question in the chat. You've done a lot of different readings. You've done a lot of different conversations. Hopefully, a sense of urgency that the status quo doesn't work for most kids, and that we need to actively work on that is building in you. So as you're thinking about action learning, and you're saying that this is not a journey you're going to go on alone, you're going to create a team, and that team might not be identified as a team. You might be building a team. It doesn't have to be an existing team. What readings and learnings and experiences from the last 2 days, and you're thinking about action learning, what kind of conversations are you going to have?